Good afternoon, viewers and listeners of Concerned Citizens Media. Welcome back again. Nice to have you here. So thank you so much. Today is March the 17th, 2022. Good afternoon to all of you. So I have so many updates to cover. Uh, so I will start with Representative Ayan Omar speech. I will start with that one. She is arguing about uh, against no-fly zone and other issues related with Ukraine-Russia conflict. So I will go directly to that one, then I will come to other news. Thank you again for joining me. Let's get started.
Omar for 5 minutes. Madam Speaker, I rise today in solidarity with the Ukrainian people who are facing a cruel and inhumane war of aggression from a tyrant, Vladimir Putin. I also stand in solidarity with my Ukrainian American constituents whose friends and families are in harm's way. We must address this war with courage, foresight, and humility. I am appalled by the extraordinary cruelty of Putin's war. I am also moved by the courage of the Ukrainians and also by the courage of the anti-war protesters in Russia risking 15 years in prison for speaking out against Putin's aggression. We must stand unified with the Ukrainian people. But even as we stand with the Ukrainian people, we must avoid the knee-jerk calls to make this conflict even worse. One thing we should have learned throughout our history is that policy decisions we make simply based on fear or rage rarely end well. Increasingly, we are hearing voices calling for the United States and NATO to enter into war with Russia. For the most part, they are not saying this directly. They are using euphemisms like no-fly zone. A no-fly zone is not simply declared. It must be militarily enforced. As the president said, a no-fly zone would mean the United States entering the war. It would mean the beginning of World War III. We must reject this completely. The stakes are incredibly high. There has never been on this earth a war between two or more nuclear powers. And there is a reason for this. Even in the madness of the Cold War, leaders around the world understood that nuclear war would mean the annihilation of humanity. There are voices now that are shockingly casual about the risk of nuclear war. I'm asking the American people, do not believe them. Do not believe them when they tell you to keep it, it's going to be limited. Do not believe them when they tell you nuclear winter isn't real. It isn't that bad. They don't know that. They can't know that. Aside from the very real risk of nuclear escalation, we have placed the strictest sanctions in history on Russia with no clear off-ramps or criteria for lifting them. What is clear is that broad-based sanctions will be devastating for civilians. What is less clear is that Putin or his inner circle will be hurt or deterred by them. As Secretary Albright told me in a committee in 2019, I quote, "We have learned that comprehensive sanctions hurt the people. Collective punishment is a moral evil, especially when it is authorized with no end in sight. The embargo in Cuba has been in place for over 60 years. It has caused incredible human suffering. It has not produced its intended outcome. Maximum pressure sanctions on Iran and Venezuela have made it hard for people living in those countries to buy food and medicine, but it has done nothing to weaken their governments. We also know that there are a number of countries who depend on Russia and Ukraine for their food supplies. Russia and Ukraine produce 1/3 of the world's wheat. Already, there are reports that countries are refusing to export their own food supplies for fear of shrinking supply. There is a very real chance that this war, our sanctions, could lead to famine in places like Sudan, which imports half of its wheat from Russia. The Russian people did not choose this war, and the Sudanese people certainly did not. Our policies should not punish them. I don't support broad-based sanctions on any country, adversary, or ally. They are economic warfare, and we should all oppose them like we oppose military actions. Madam Speaker, this war was sparked by greed, imperialism, and dehumanization. We must lead with humanity. Let us not just stand with the people of Ukraine who are giving their lives fighting off a cruel war of conquest, but also the brave Russian dissidents who are risking their own lives to stand up to Putin. Let's stand for a world where the rule of law
The gentlelady's time has expired.
Human rights abusers face justice, and we see each other first and foremost as fellow humans. I yield back, Madam Speaker.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Tennessee, Mr. Burchett.
Okay, so that is her argument. I have a couple of videos I'll show you at the end of the reading material. So Representative Ann Omar is telling us the situation, the war between Russia and Ukraine is very complex. So it's very hard to deal with it. If you put pressure, it will impact us and the people living in a third world country like Sudan, Ethiopia, or Egypt, or some other countries who are getting their supplies, basic food materials. So it's very complex. She's also arguing against implementing a no-fly zone. That's a very dangerous one. It could lead to third world war. So we may not have a chance to survive if they fight with a nuclear power. So it's a very complex, and the United States applied so many sanctions. Europeans applied also sanctions, and also providing money, weapons, human resources. Everything is given to Ukraine, but so far no impact on the Russian government. Also, I have a report which says Russia is also warning the United States and its allies. Very serious warning. I will read that one later on. So it's a very complex situation. You know, you do it or you don't do it. So it's a very tough situation, very complex. But Ukraine is in the meantime under destruction. Ukrainians are suffering, bleeding, dying. That is the situation happening, and they can't do nothing really except sanctioning. You know, they can't stop. Russia is suffering a little bit, losing some military hardware, but nothing happening in Moscow. Nothing. So how are they going to stop? They cannot stop. They will go ahead and captured Ukraine. It might take time. That's I can see from the whole situation. You cannot stop the war just by providing gun, money, and against the very powerful country like Russia. Okay, thank you again for joining me. The other one is about Battee Urgeessaa, OLF spokesperson, suffering in hospital and needing funding for foreign treatment. This guy is he was healthy before he was captured when he was visiting his fellow friends at the prison. he just illegally captured by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed forces in Ethiopia, illegally detained for more than a year, now possibly poisoned, maybe poisoned at jail. And he was allowed to get out by the court, but the Prime Minister and his security forces kept him illegally in jail. That's the injustice we are facing in Ethiopia. Now he's struggling, for his life, and he is looking for fund. So so there's fundraising activities. You can play your part by donating www.gofundme.com. If Battee Urgeessaa Medical Support Fund. So please donate whatever you can. These people are, suffering for us. They are not suffering for their personal cases, not because of their criminal cases. They are fighting for our freedom, so we can enjoy justice, peace, and stability in that country. They are suffering and illegally detained, illegally, kept just for visiting somebody. So this is very dictatorial characteristics of Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed conduct. He don't care about anybody. The crimes are piling up on him, and I hope he will face it. He will face justice one day. But the crimes are on the top of each other, is piled up. Whether the burning of humans alive, taking prisoners from jail and assassinating, killing, individuals on the public view, and arresting people released by the court. So many, and the war going on in the northern part of Ethiopia. Mass arrest based of ethnic identity. So many crimes. This prime minister, under this prime minister Abiy Ahmed, carried out for the last 3 years. He was part of the 27 years before that too. So his crimes are limitless. I hope he will face justice one day. So please donate for this fundraising for Battee Urgeessaa Medical Support Fund. And the other very strong message sent on the burning of Tigrayans in Benishangul Gumuz region by Dr. Debretsion Gebremichael, Tigray region president and TDF head, TDF chairman. So he strongly condemned that act, and he said the criminals who carried out this barbaric, brutal attack against Tigrayans will face justice. He said we will hunt them down and bring them justice wherever they are. So it's a matter of time, he said. And also he said those occupying forces in the Tigray western part will be forced by TDF. That's also a matter of time. He said he will secure the whole Tigray region by removing these invaders, Ethiopians, Amara militia, Fano, and other forces. So very strong message from Dr. Debretsion Gebremichael of Tigray region. Very strong condemnation and calling for, also he called on international community to call what is happening in Tigray genocide. He said, don't hesitate, genocide is happening. Please call it by its name, he said. So don't ignore this thing is happening against black. So it's not a matter of black or white. It is genocide happening in Tigray. He, demand they call or encourage them to call genocide is happening in Tigray. His messages for United States, European Union, or United Nations. So call it as it is. Genocide is happening in Tigray. So a very strong message. But so far, the Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed never condemned this this barbaric, brutal, gruesome video circulating on social media. Never condemned. It's not his business. His business is planting tree, lying to Ethiopians, lying to the global community, and trashing Ethiopians, belittling them, and ignoring all the problems the country facing because he confident he got surrounded by security forces. He don't care about military coup or any challenge. He don't fear because he got very friendly forces around him. So he speak, he smile, fake smile, and he's doing whatever against Ethiopians. He can arrest, he can kill, he can torture, he can do whatever. He can spend whatever money he want to spend. Nobody challenge him. He is a sovereign authority now. And I hope it will not continue in that matter. But he never condemned this act. That means he is the one carrying out these atrocities because these people have Ethiopian uniform, military uniform. So he is behind all this burning of residents while they are alive in their home, and also these videos circulating on social media. This is unprecedented, very bad one for Ethiopia. It might head to Burundi, Rwanda, something like that if it's not controlled. So that's why I call on international community, don't ignore this. Please make these authorities accountable and help us to remove this bad system. Bad system. Okay. The other thing is there is a report about the release of Dawit Ibsa. I didn't get that much confirmation from other medias, but some medias are reporting Dawit Ibsa, OLF chair person, released from jail, house arrest. He has been in house arrest for more than a year. Nobody knows his condition because nobody challenged the prime minister. He can do whatever he can, whatever he want to do, as I said repeatedly. So he was in jail. We don't know what he was eating, what he was dressing, what condition he was in. Nobody was allowed to visit. His health condition is unknown. So many unknown. And illegally detained for more than a year. Now some reports are saying he is released. It's a good thing, but he might put him back again because the system is there. As long as the system, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed is there, there is no guarantee for justice, peace, equality, freedom in that country. Yeah, that's the reality. That's why we are advocating, and I'm calling upon him repeatedly to resign like Prime Minister Haile Mariam Desalegn, his predecessor. That person should be, admired. This guy, he never satisfied with the bloodshed happening in that country. He never satisfied with inflation, unemployment, or global isolation happening under his leadership. He want to continue. He don't care. He just tell you to eat whatever you want to eat, or he can just tell you as a childish message, meaningless message. He can cheat, he can lie, he can do whatever you want to do. So he keep, as long as he keep his power. So as long as this system is there, those politicians can be rearrested again, can be released again, can be tortured, they can be poisoned, they can be killed because the system is there. So as long as the system is there, whether they are released or whether rearrested, it doesn't make any sense. But if it's out, I'm happy for temporary, but we need to remove the system. The system is killing Ethiopians, destroying Ethiopia. So that's the news. The other thing is Afar Tigray conflict still continue. So far, more than 300,000 fled their home in Afar region. Shortage of medicine, shortage of water, shortage of food also reported in that region. And the Afar forces are blaming TDF for this problem. But the reality is not that one. They are also part of the problem. They are proud Ethiopians, and they are try to show the Fanus, the Amara militias. They are, the real supporter of their agenda. So they try to intimidate, block the aid coming to Tigray. They want to cross the border into Tigray with these forces. So they are the problems. They are the problems. If they stay in their region and allow the aid trucks passing through, I don't think TDF will fight them. I don't think so. But they are the aggravators. They are the one jumping up and down to create this problem. And now they are also blaming the federal forces for not participating in this war. So the other reality is the Ethiopian government, whether in Afar or Tigray or Amara region, they don't allow the journalists, international journalists, to verify these reports. They don't allow. And they don't want to report. They don't want to be accountable for how many people died, how many people injured, how many houses destroyed. They don't want. Only sometimes they allow some pro-government media to report. So that's the only thing. But except that, they don't allow. This is a crime by itself. This is a crime by itself. It happened in Wallagga region for more than 3 years. It happened in Tigray, Amara war, Tigray Afar war. It happened. No international media is allowed to report. So that is a little bit update and partial credit for this one. France 24 for Tigray Afar war still continue. Thank you again. Let's read some other news very quickly. And I have short videos at the end. This is good news for Ethiopia. The United States has shared 7.8 plus million doses of COVID-19 vaccines with Ethiopia. The U.S. Embassy in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, announced a donation by the United States government of an additional 840,060 doses of the Pfizer vaccine as part of its global effort to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. The donated vaccines are part of the United States pledge to initially provide 25 million doses to Africa of 80 million doses globally. We are sharing these doses safely, equitably, with the singular objective of saving lives and with no strings attached. This batch, which arrived on the Bole International Airport in Addis Ababa via COVAX on March 14, 2022, brings the number of doses of vaccines the U.S. has provided to Ethiopia to over 7.8 million since July 17, 2021. We are pleased to continue to support the Ethiopian Ministry of Health's effort to vaccinate and protect more Ethiopians. Safe and effective vaccines are our best tool to end the pandemic, and the United States is committed to purchasing and donating 1.1 billion COVID-19 vaccine doses worldwide. To date, the United States has delivered more than 492 million doses of COVID-19 vaccine to more than 110 countries. This undertaking to provide COVID-19 vaccines to 92 Gavi advanced market commitment economies and African Union member states will continue to fulfill US President Biden's commitment to strengthen the fight against the global pandemic. From the beginning of my presidency, we have been clear-eyed that we need to attack this virus globally as well. This is about our responsibility, our humanitarian obligation to save as many lives as we can, and our responsibility to our values. We are going to help lead the world out of this pandemic, working alongside our global partners, President Joe Biden. We look forward to continued coordination with the African Union and African CDC to deliver these doses across the continent through the COVAX initiative via the establishment logistical channels. So that's a good news. We appreciate the United States for this life-saving medicine for providing to Ethiopians, really. Credit U.S. Embassy in Ethiopia. This is a tweet from Oda Turbi, OLA international spokesperson. The Abiy regime continues to commit atrocities against the Amhara and the Oromo people with the intention of blaming the OLA, Oromo Liberation Army. Both state media and its diaspora lobbyists are working overtime smear the Oromo Liberation Army. Regardless, the Oromo Liberation Army, OLA, remains a disciplined force fighting for democracy. So that's a tweet from Oda Turbi, OLA international spokesperson. Okay. WHO head spotlight catastrophic humanitarian crisis in Ethiopia's Tigray region. The head of the World Health Organization, WHO, cast a spotlight on the catastrophic humanitarian situation in Tigray's region, even as the world attention is on the war and the refugee crisis in Ukraine. Speaking at a press conference on Wednesday, WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus urged member countries and humanitarian groups to not forget the other humanitarian crises happening around the world. Tedros, who is an Ethiopian, noted that due to the ongoing conflict in the country, nearly 6 million Tigray people have been blocked from accessing cash, fuel, and communications, adding that no food has been delivered to the region since last December. I wonder how these people are living without banking system, without electricity, without fuel, without communication. I think somebody should make a research. This can be very good dissertation for PhD, really. I just wondering how people are living without the banking system, without electricity, without water, without medicine. This also, the other thing is they are also providing these people the Ethiopian military forces personnel, you know, just, protecting the international warfare law, giving them medicine, giving them food, and keeping them for more than a year now. Those maybe thousands and the thousands, those Ethiopian soldiers surrendered. They didn't burn them like the Fanos did, the Amara militia did, the civilians, in Matakal zone. They didn't burn them. They keep them safe. They feed them. They are feeding them. They are providing them whatever they can, despite their own suffering by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, despite their own suffering by this blockade of the region from the rest of the world. So I just wondering, I wish I could go there and visit, see how the people are living. Yeah. So that's I'm curious to know how they are living. The situation is catastrophic, Tedros said at the news conference. 83% of the population is food insecure. Our partners are running out of what little food they have and the fuel to transport it. He added, about 3/4 of health facilities assessed by WHO have been damaged or destroyed. Tedros said that the health agency airlifted 33 tons of medicines and health supplies to the region in February, the first such shipment since July last year. Yes, I am from Tigray, and this crisis affects me, my family, and my friends very personally, he added. But as the Director General of WHO, I have a duty to protect and promote health wherever it is under threat, and there is nowhere on earth where the health of millions of people is more under threat than in the Tigray region. Tedros' remarks come amid the ongoing Russian invasion of Ukraine, which has caused well over 2 million Ukrainians to flee the country, as many in the countries struggle to access basic amenities as Russia forces bombard some cities. Credit for this news is The Hill. So that's very serious situation, and the global community, those humanitarian organizations should pay attention before these people are dying. This is about Israel banning Ethiopian Christians from coming to Israel. Israel is reportedly banning the entry of Ethiopian pilgrims who want to embark on a pilgrimage to the country during this year's Easter for fear they will not return home. Local media reports travel and tourism companies have received a letter from Israeli population and the immigration authority stating that any Ethiopian traveler who want to visit Israel will need to contact the authority personally and received permission to enter. Tourists from other countries do not have to follow the same protocol. Tour companies can generally submit a group application for tourists traveling as a group. The authorities later noted that the move was out of concern that these tourists will not head back due to the ongoing civil war in their country, according to local media reports. Israel's population and immigration authority said the policy was necessary because in the past Ethiopian tourists have overstayed. The head of the Israeli incoming tour Operators Association is quoted by the Times of Israel as saying it was severely discriminatory as it only applied to Ethiopians. The Tigray war began in November 2020. A spokesperson for Ethiopia's foreign ministry says that he was not aware of the decision by Israel. Ethiopia's tourism sector has also been hit hard by the fighting, as many of the country's most celebrated destinations are unreachable. One tour operator in Addis Ababa, which works with counterpart in Israel to arrange the pilgrims, says that the decision was bad news for his business, already suffering from the war and pandemic-related restrictions. So Israel is banning the pilgrims from Ethiopia. This is usually done, I think, every year, and now they are restricting Ethiopians from heading for the pilgrim. And the other thing is they are accepting Ukrainians without any restrictions. That's a questionable move by Israeli government. The country claims the most democratic country in the Middle East. Now they are accepting Ukrainians but denying the Ethiopians. So that's the situation. Credit for this one, African News. So this is also based on that by Israeli minister criticizing hypocrisy over Jewish immigration. Israeli Minister of Immigrant Absorption, Penina Tamano Shata, has criticized her colleagues for showing no interest in Ethiopian Jews who are suffering in the war between Ethiopian government and the Tigrayan separatists. According to the minister, Ethiopian Jews who have been trying to flee their war-torn country do not enjoy the same sympathy in Israel enjoyed by Ukrainian Jews who are fleeing war in their country. Yeah, that's a questionable move. This is hypocrisy of the white people, said Tamano Shata during a cabinet meeting. We must also work to advance the immigration of Jews from Ethiopia who are also fleeing a war. Diaspora Minister Nachman Shai replied to the Ethiopian-born Tamano Shata, "We are from Europe." That's disgusting. Tamano Shah asked Shai to withdraw his remark. Far-right Finance Minister Avigdor Lieberman, who was born in Moldova when it was part of the Soviet Union, tried to calm her down by saying that Shai was only joking. It's not a joke. Economy Minister Orna Barbival didn't appreciate Tamano Shata's remark. "How can you say such a thing?" she asked. "How would you react if someone said that black people are hypocrisy?" Credit for this one, Middle East Monitor. So, yes, the move by Israeli population and immigration officer or authority is questionable, denying Ethiopians and allowing Ukrainian Jews to enter Israel without any question. That's a questionable. This is Antony Blinken, Secretary of State. This is a press release or additional visa restriction for undermining the democratic process in Somalia. Following the government of Somalia's failure to meet another self-established deadline of March 15 for the completion of its parliamentary electoral process, the United States is expanding the number of Somali individuals subject to visa restrictions. I am taking this action pursuant to a policy I announced on February 8 under Section 212A3C of the Immigration and Nationality Act to restrict the issuance of visas for those believed to be responsible for or complicit in undermining the democratic process in Somalia. While encouraging progress has been made over the past few weeks, there are still more than 3 dozen unfilled parliamentary seats. There are continued credible reports of procedural irregularities. Journalists and opposition party members working to support democratic institution and a transparent process have been targeted with harassment, intimidation, arrest, and violence. We will continue to evaluate additional designation under this policy and other tools at our disposal to promote accountability and support the rapid conclusion of Somalia's electoral process in a credible and transparent manner. The United States strongly supports the Somali people and remain committed to working to advance democracy and mutual prosperity. So credit for this one, U.S. State Department. So Farmer Joe is playing around. I don't think he will escape it. He will face maximum pressure from the United States. He is playing around like Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and try to cheat, try to play around and stay in power illegally. So that's a part of the game. Part of the game. I hope. Yes, I think the Somalians are very tough, tougher than Ethiopians. They don't allow him to play around and cheat the election. So that is 1 billion in new U.S. security assistance for Ukraine this week. Press statement, Anthony J. Blinken again, Secretary of State. In recent days, Russia has escalated its premeditated, unprovoked, and unjustified war on Ukraine, striking hospitals, demolishing schools, leveling civilian infrastructure, and killing hundreds of civilians. As Ukrainian forces bravely continue to combat Russia's renewed invasion, the United States and its allies and partners stand steadfast in support of Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity, and we continue expediting security assistance to Ukraine. This includes 1 billion in new security assistance for Ukraine this week. Exercising the additional authority provided in the Ukraine Supplemental Appropriation Act signed into law by the President, I have immediately authorized, pursuant to a delegation by the President Executive earlier today, a presidential drawdown of military assistance valued at up to 800 million for Ukraine defense. This authorization is the fifth draw of equipment from the Department of Defense in inventories for Ukraine in the last 6 months, combined with $200 million authorized March 12, it will bring the total U.S. security assistance approved for Ukraine to 1 billion in this last week alone. We are able to provide this level of assistance because of our partnership with Congress, whose representatives and generosity we deeply appreciate. We will continue to work closely with lawmakers to support our Ukrainian partners and impose costs on the Russian government. Today's announcement nearly doubles total security assistance to Ukraine since the beginning of the administration to more than $2 billion, enabling U.S. to surge additional needed assistance, including anti-aircraft anti-tank and anti-armor systems, as well as small arms and munitions used by Ukrainian security forces on the ground right now in the fight to defend their country. The United States will continue to stand together with the community of nations backing the people of Ukraine as they defend their country, and will continue to urge President Putin to stop the violence, de-escalate, and choose the path of diplomacy. Until then, we will remain in close contact and coordination with our partners and allies, rally freedom-loving countries worldwide to continue delivering swift and severe consequences to the Russian government and its enablers, and keep surging diplomatic support, security and economic assistance, and humanitarian aid to help the people of Ukraine in their time of need. U.S. State Department. So this war is costing us financially, costing us emotionally, socially, in many multiple fronts. So it's not an easy war really. It's a global war actually. It's a global war. What is missing? Just other countries directly shooting to the Russian Federation. That's the only thing missing. But other than that, there is a global war through sanctions, through supply of armament, through supply of money, everything. So we are also paying at the when we are pumping fuel into our cars. So it's costing us. I hope it will stop. I hope it will stop. And you know, they are discussing, they are talking. The talk is still going on between Russia and the Ukraine, but no meaningful outcome to stop this war. So this is a warning from Russia. Russia is also playing tough. Last time, they also sanctioned U.S. President Joe Biden, Secretary Anthony Blinken, even Hillary Clinton. I don't know what she has to do something with this. I don't know. So they sanction U.S. officials. So they are also playing their part. This is a very serious warning against the United States from Putin, from Russia. Russia warned the United States, we have the might to put you in your place. This is very scary. Russia warned the United States on Thursday that Moscow had the might to put the world's preeminent superpower in its place, and accused the West of stalking a wild Russophobic plot to tear Russia apart. Dmitry Medvedev, who served as president from 2008 to 2012 and is now Deputy Secretary of Russia's Security Council, said the United States had stoked disgusting Russophobia in an attempt to force Russia to its knee. It will not work. Russia has the might to put all of our brash enemies in their place, Medvedev said. Since Russia invaded Ukraine on February 24, the United States and its European and Asian allies have slapped sanctions on Russia leaders, companies, and businessmen, cutting off Russia from much of the world economy. President Vladimir Putin says that what he calls the special military operation in Ukraine was necessary because the threat Russia had to defend against the genocide of Russian-speaking people by Ukraine. That's the excuse he used. Ukraine says it is fighting for existence, and that Putin's claim of genocide are nonsense. the West says claims it wants to rip Russia apart are fiction. Russia says that despite sanctions, it can fare well without what it casts as a deceitful and decadent West led by the United States. It says its bid to forge ties with the West after the 1991 fall of the Soviet Union is now over, and that it will develop ties with other powers such as China. So that is a warning from Russia against the United States and the West. Credit for this one, Reuters. So that's the end of the reading material. I have couple of very short videos, and I will conclude today's presentation. Thank you again. There we go. There we go.
Lately, when Congolese go at the pump, it has been the same disappointment. Inexorably soaring fuel prices in the Democratic Republic of Congo are the latest consequence of the war in Ukraine. The conflict is stoking fears and anger, especially among residents of the northeastern part of the DRC. The authorities are present, yet prices are rising, and the authorities are not involved in regulating them. Why not ask those who are raising prices to lower them, and even stop them from speculating? The rising costs not only affect fuel, but on the market stalls, commodities get prohibitively expensive. A 50-kilo bag of sugar, which previously cost around $43, now goes for $60. And the same goes for cooking oil, rice, or maize. They are now worth the double of their price a few weeks ago. One of the reasons explaining this inflation is that DRC heavily relies on imports. If at the international level we don't find a way to stop what is happening in Ukraine, it means that we will face supply difficulties. It is clear that prices will continue to surge here, and I think that the next 2 months will be decisive for our population here in the east of the DRC. We are going to feel the shock of this war between Ukraine and Russia. To reduce the pressure on households, the Bukavu province governor has recommended that prices be lowered. But economic operators struggle to apply the directive. They've already suffered record losses due to inflation.
Okay, one more.
Taiwanese soldiers fire artillery shells at a target representing advancing enemy forces. The democratically self-ruled island is conducting military exercises to prepare for a potential assault by Chinese forces. They follow repeated incursions by Chinese warplanes into the island's air defense zone. Taiwanese leader Tsai Ing-wen, seen here watching Army reservists train last week, says the war in Ukraine proves Taiwan needs to be prepared to resist threats from China. In a sign of increasing tensions between the two countries, reservists have been mobilized for 14 days this year rather than the usual 7.
I think the training is very solid. We are now familiar with the nearby defensive terrain and also places we can use to fend off an attack. I think this 14-day reservist call-up is very useful.
China considers Taiwan a breakaway province and has previously threatened to seize the island by force. The leadership in Beijing has been angered by recent reports of Taiwan finalizing its latest deal to buy military equipment from the United States.
We firmly oppose the sale of arms by US to Taiwan. We oppose any official exchanges between the US and Taiwan. The Democratic Progressive Party authorities have repeatedly used the hard-earned money of Taiwan's taxpayers to buy US arms in an attempt to seek independence by force, but they will not succeed.
In Taiwan's capital, Taipei, they've been demonstrating in support of Ukraine's resistance to the Russian invasion, and 4,000 boxes of medicine, food and blankets have been collected for Ukrainian refugees.
It's unbelievable this is happening. We should do what we can to help. The children are innocent. Their lives have been turned upside down so suddenly. As a parent, I feel so heartbroken. I want to help.
Taiwan regularly holds drills to prepare for a potential Chinese invasion. As the war in Ukraine rages on, 23 million Taiwanese are hoping the status quo where they are will be maintained. Victoria Gatenby, Al Jazeera.
Okay, thank you, Al Jazeera, for this update. That's also another boiling situation we follow. We have to follow it, and between China and Taiwan. So there is a claim by China over there as considering Taiwan as a breakaway region. So, you know, that's also something we have to watch it very closely. It's a boiling situation. China is also watching what's happening in Ukraine and standing with Russia. So they might get a return when they try to do something. So Taiwan is getting ready. I hope that will not happen, but they are getting ready to fight back against Russia. So the other video was about the impact of Ukraine war on basic supply, fuel, wheat, and other agricultural supplies, because most of the agricultural supply coming from Ukraine and Russia. So the Russia already banned exports for 2022, and the war is impacting especially African countries who cannot produce their own basic supplies. They are looking for outside. So that's Democratic Republic in Congo. Sudan is also an issue. Ethiopia is already known. People cannot even buy oil, and the Prime Minister has no answer except spending millions for his party, for Congress. He don't care. So that's the situation. So, and Ann Umar warned about this, the consequence of the war, especially on third world country, on Sudan and other countries. So that is the situation. That's the update I have for today. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll be back with other news and updates. Please stay safe, and I will be back. So long, everyone.